What's up, everyone? It's Shaf, aka That Mill Guy, coming at you with another interview. We're talking with just a grand champion of Mill right now. We did our original interview with Delthar, talking about the 18th place in the Modern Challenge. Well, I'm coming at you with first place in the Modern Challenge. Alex Hempelmann, let's get right to it. Introduce yourself, give me a quick intro, and we'll just hop right into it.
Hi, Chef. Thanks for having me on your interview tonight. I'm Alex, aka The Enzyme on MTGO, and I've been playing Mill for a couple of years, trying to make it competitive. And I think this year I may or may not made the cut to have it in a competitive event.
Yeah. I hope that this result has allowed you to make the cut. If there's anything, if anyone else thinks that it hasn't made the cut, I don't know. I don't know who else can think you haven't made the cut. I don't know. Maybe like Reed Duke or Gabriel Nassif. I don't know. They've won world champions, so I don't know. Like, there's really no other standard. You are at our highest standard right now. So I think we'll hop right into the questions here. And we'll start off with the first one. You're talking about how you've been playing Mill and Magic for a while. Do you want to start us off with when did you start playing Mill? How did that come across? And maybe translate that into how you went into Modern and Mill specifically. Go for it. It's a bit of a long one, but go for it.
Okay, I think my Magic history is a classic one. Like most people, I played it in school, and then school happened, then studies happened, and I kind of lost touch. And then I moved to a new city for the master's thesis, and there were not so much people around. I was like, okay, how do I find like people, local context, friends? And I found a local game store, and I just went by, and everyone in there just went crazy on Modern. They're like really competitive Modern. I went there with my bulks from the from my leftovers here, and they're like, hey, you cannot really register like this for the Modern event. I'm like, oh, what do I do? And someone just gave me a deck and I played, and that's why I wanted to start the Modern thing. But the only cards that I'd left from back then were like 4 Glimpse the Unthinkable, which were quite expensive back then, right?
Before we hop into it, what deck was it? What deck were you given?
I was giving a burn deck, and now I hate burn.
Oh, okay,
so
I really hope someone didn't just give you blue-white control and they're like, go for it.
Or like Storm, and you're like, what? How does that
you're
work?
like, okay, there's like 4 creatures in here. What do I do?
Attack for 2? What's going to happen?
You start looking at like Goblin Warrens, and you're like, this is the worst on-rate card in the world.
Exactly, yeah. So someone just gave me burn, and it worked out. But then I went really into it. I wanted to have my own deck. I wanted to compete with these guys. And yeah, I had the Glimpse still from back then, and they were super expensive. They didn't have a reprint, right? They were like $25 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I slowly gathered all the pieces. My first version didn't have Fetchland, didn't have any. And I kind of went from there. And it was around the time where Amonkhet was coming out. So like, I think 2017.
Yeah.
And with Hour of Devastation, they printed Frank Sanity. And that's where I knew I want to have this card in my deck. I want to play around it. And I think with Hour of Devastation, that was really the time where I tried to make it competitive and started going on Grand Prix.
Okay, yeah. And I guess like going from there, so you felt like, I mean, so you had the glimpses. Was there maybe, like, did you ever see someone play Mill? Did you kind of come up with your, like, how did you stumble upon the list? Like me personally, I don't know if you know Wedge from the Mana Source. He actually did like a very big, one of the most viewed videos on Mill right now, just a quick deck tech on it. And that's what drew me to it. I had a friend of mine playing Mill and EDH and everything. So I was surrounded by it. I don't know how you jumped across it.
I don't really recall. I mean, for sure, the first iterations of the decks were no competitive list or whatnot. I just had the glimpse and I googled it and I saw what people had on MTG deck nets or whatnot. I got some crabs, I got some archive traps, and that's basically what I had. And then I pushed in everything from there,
Okay.
And today I have a full foil mill, so I kind of advanced.
Okay. Did you buy Mesmeric Orb foils now or before?
I think I bought them like 1.5 years ago or so.
God. Yeah.
So I do have the good Mirrodines.
Okay, that's good.
I also have that on my desk if you're curious.
Yeah. Those are pricey. Let me see them. Let me see if you can see the foiling process on them.
Alright.
Because I got foil traps and I have a bunch of it foil. It's pristine. Will it autofocus? That looks pristine.
And it's like,
beyond
it got a
NM.
little bending.
Okay. It's not like the secret lair Pringles that like everyone's used to. No. No, the foiling process was much better.
Yeah, but it's like super old, right? It's Mirrodin. It's like what, I don't know, 20 years maybe, 2000 something.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
yeah.
so to go back to what you were saying before, you were just you kind of ended off that statement with talking about how you just started playing in GPs. What GPs did you play in? How many did you play in? And before burying the lead too far, how did that lead you into your result in February this year? Kind of pre-COVID and everything. Yeah.
So as I said, I think I started playing GPs end of 2017,
Wow. Okay.
and I didn't do any good on GPs so far, unfortunately. I'm not sure why, but sometimes it just doesn't work out, right?
Sure.
But I did do quite okay in the PTQs, and I think that's what you wanted to go on, right? The Pro Tour qualifier earlier this year. It's always on a Friday on GPs, so like one day before the main event, and you are anyway there. It's a nice experience. I mean, everyone wants to play on a PT at some point, so these are just one-shot events. And yeah, I just registered with my trusty mill list and went to the top 8, but then I got kicked out by actually a friend of mine, also from Germany.
Do you know what the friend was playing? Do you
Yeah,
remember?
he was on Provis, and back then it wasn't a good matchup. It still isn't good, I would say,
Oh
today,
no.
but it's getting a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
So that
still
was a little
not.
heartbreaking. And also my friend didn't make it then, so kind of unnecessary that he kicked me out, no?
What did your friend get kicked out by?
I think he then got kicked out by Tron. Yeah. I'm not
Tron beat
entirely.
prowess. Even those OG prowess builds, like they were running Kiln Fiend. Like those decks were explosive. Those are so all in.
Tell me
Wow.
about it. But yeah, you know
Wow.
Modern, right? There's always the variance, and sometimes you just gotta lose.
Oh God.
Yeah.
As someone who has a stream branded around going 1-4, I think I'm very accustomed to losing. So that's very fair.
Yeah.
So going from there, we obviously had throughout the last year, not only in Modern has there been a bit of a renaissance in the meta. It feels like every set that comes out rotates kind of Modern in some way. We had kind of Ashiok Dreamrender, Teferi Time Raveler, some of these very big mainstay planeswalkers. Ashiok maybe not so much, but if you look at it by numbers, it's been a fantastic sideboard card in blue-white control and any blue build. But how do you feel about before Zendikar? How have you been feeling about Modern over the last year? We had kind of Drown in the Lock and just a couple other cards coming in, Scheming Symmetry even. How have you felt about that with your lists moving forward?
So I was super excited for all these cards. So I think the mentionable things are Scheming Symmetry, Drawn a Loch, and also Lurus.
Yes.
And I tried them all, but I couldn't just make a deck list that felt consistent enough to justify these things. So with the Symmetry, I tried to get some draw effects in with Opt, or also having Nazet's mainboard to just get the Archive Trap immediately from top of the library into your hand. But it just felt too clunky and I couldn't really make it work. To be honest, I didn't spend too much energy in Lurus because I was quite sure that it does get the X, and surprisingly ended up being so, right?
Yes.
And Drawn, I just kicked out recently with Zendikar. When first Drawn was introduced, I was so excited because it just does everything on the card, right? That's exactly what we needed.
Yep.
But me personally, I just got betrayed by the card so often that I was in a spot where I could not really cast it. I didn't have the UB open. And so at the end of the day, with the new crabs, I just kicked it out.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can mirror that frustration with the mana cost. Although I'm definitely a proponent of it, I definitely understand like a deck trying to jam 4 Field of Ruin as a primary plan is it's very hard to support something that's blue-black and something you want to cast consistently alongside other blue-black spells like Glimpse. How have you, I guess, what is it? Did you still make it work, or were you still trying to stay away from it? I know a lot of people would argue that it should be a play set or something, but was it just a mana cost that put you aside? I know me personally, it was also the fact that it didn't affect Planeswalkers. I find that Mill has a very difficult time interacting with Planeswalkers, and 2019 has really made it so Modern is a very, like, you have to be able to deal with onboard permanence very efficiently. I don't know how you feel on that, but yeah.
Agree. My first thought on Zendikar release was that now it's the time for Drawn to shine. Because with 8 crabs, you have in the Dream World, turn 1 crab, and then turn 2, you play a land. There's 3 cards in the graveyard, and you have just your Drawn online. But I couldn't make it work. I tried with 4, I tried with 2, and it always just didn't do the job. And so the card to mention here that replace it is for me for sure the Blood Chiefs first, because it's just the fatal push that we need for 1 mana less. And countering stuff is nice, but I felt for now in the meta I don't really need it.
I think like I wouldn't say I was hesitant on Blood Chief's Thirst. I think like I think okay, it's very clearly almost a borderline replacement of Fatal Push and at least Pioneer. It's probably going to be a removal staple in Historic and Standard for like however long it's legal. It's an insane card in terms of being on rate early and good late. But in the fetch line formats, I've heard a lot of people say that like Fatal Push is just better. But I think you're right in saying that like just being able to remove anything early. Like I find that a card like this is appealing against Jund. Primarily because it kills Goyf early, and then it kills Liliana later. But I'm definitely I don't know if I agree with the full play set of it in there, but like 2 to 3 copies somewhere in the 75 is extremely powerful. But so I guess let's use that to translate into your result right now. And before we specifically go into that, how do you feel about Zendikar Rising and its effect, not on just Mill, but Modern? Let's start with there, but let's go broad. How do you feel like Zendikar Rising is affecting Modern?
I hope that it will not affect Modern in a way previous set did, and completely warping them. I think the idea of having the double-faced lens is great to counter-attack some of the things that doesn't make fun in Magic, which is screwing and flooding. I feel it's a great idea. And I'm not sure about this new Belcher list that popped up. Maybe it is a meme, but then again, people are also saying Mill is a meme, so I might be hesitant with my judgment on this.
In a meta full of Uro and blue decks, and a deck that's able to combo off with the mainboard Veil of Summer, it has something, right? Like it may just end up being a flash in the pan, but it's gotta have something. Like,
yeah, maybe it's here to stay, but let's see about that, right? Coming back to this, Uro is a very great keyword. I mean, this is a card that really warped like all the formats, so did Oko.
Yes.
And I fear or hope that Zendikar is just good for us and doesn't warp everything else. But let's see about it.
So, okay, more specifically, the 2 cards, I guess, that would technically be on everyone's mind. You didn't play one of them in your list, but obviously you played the big one. How do you feel, first and foremost, about Maddening Cacophony?
Maddening Cacophony is a tricky card for me. For sure, I do get the upsides. The mana costs are better. It is not affected by hexproof, and every now and then you might kick it off and just win the game with a Frank Sanity in game. I tried some games with it, and usually it didn't really do much for me. It was just a worse glimpse.
Sure.
And also, I didn't play Breaking Entering previously. For the people that do not know, that card is the split card from Tyros, I believe, which also mills 8.
Yeah. Any card you mentioned, I'll try my best in the post work to have it up on screen and everything. So yeah. So it'll be there on screen, but regardless, if you want to refer to anything specific, but do you? I guess we'll you know what we'll wait on Cacophony. I think it translates better into a question I have later, but
sure.
I mean the main one, Ruin Crab. Come on, bring a smile to your face. Like, come on, this
is the best thing that ever happened to the Mill archetype.
There you go. That's what I want to hear. Okay. Yeah.
I think also it made Mill popular around, like, not only in our small Mill content world, but also to like the usual modern grinder. They're aware of it now. A lot of people, like really a lot of people, play Graveyard Hate and Mill Hate, Shuffle Effects.
Yeah.
And maybe, so definitely the thing that in my experience was missing for Mill previously is consistency. And we are lacking a good 1-drop. And I mean, now we got the best 1-drop that we could have wished for. It even has 1 toughness more, which is great to block all kinds of annoying things like Bobs or Goblin Guides or Talias even. And of course the hexproof. thing is also an issue. So yeah, whoever designed this card, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah. No, thumbs up. I think you hit the nail on the coffin on all those points. Like the 3 toughness is it's so huge. No one talks
Yeah,
about it. Like you've named
it's
off like
so
a lot of creatures. It's so big just being able to block so
yeah,
much more. The hexproof is surprisingly relevant. Just being able
yeah,
to now fetch through a Veil of Summer. Let's say you already got veiled that turn, you are able to fetch through and still mill your opponent through it. And then I think even Delthar in our previous interview was talking about how one of the things he didn't like was playing Crab on 1. So he played Inquisition instead because Crab usually just ended up getting removed. But what's
yep,
amazing now is like a lot of games, you just open up your hand, you got 2 lands and like 3-4 crabs, and you're like, well, I don't care
yeah.
if one gets removed because I'm about to hit you with 3 or 4
Exactly.
more.
I'm in great shape. Yeah.
Yeah. You're perfectly fine. So I think that's fantastic. So I think we're gonna go into more specifics. I think like
Sure.
with the meta calls in a second. So I think let's get right to it. How did you do? I believe it was September 9th. Yeah, today's the 20th. How did you do on September 19th, Saturday's Modern Challenge? How did you do?
I think I did quite okay, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So it was 108 people registered for the event, and it was
Yeah.
so for me in my time zone, this started at 5, and I was like, okay, this is going to be an all-nighter if I stay.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah.
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 And I even got so the first 2 games were against. Let me check in my list. So I started with playing against elementals, which was surprising to me because I didn't really know this is a real deck. But then again, people also say Mill is not a real deck, so
Were
need to
they
be cautious
playing?
here.
Were they playing New Omnath? Did you
No,
see that one? The
yeah,
one with
they did,
okay.
but
Yeah.
they just had 1 copy, and it was always ended up in their graveyard. So unlucky them.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they have this nice combo with this guy who can unbury the Skelemental and then makes a lot of damage,
Yeah.
but it was a
Yeah.
clean 2-0.
Yes.
So not too much to worry about that.
Yeah.
The
It's
second
like a
match,
1-2 with haste. I'll have it on screen right now, but yes, I know what you mean. It was big in the Faithless
yeah,
Looting era. Yeah.
exactly. So we went past by that quite quickly. And then second match, we faced Burn, and I was like, oh no, my
Oh.
old nemesis Burn. But surprisingly, or not surprisingly, having 8 blockers and 8 fatal pushes worked out quite decent. It was a clean 2-0. I didn't drop any match. And I was
Fantastic.
super
Yeah.
happy about it.
Okay. Yeah.
And, and third match was the game where I was thinking this is going to be a bye because I was playing against the Titan version, like a red, white, green Titan version. I was like, ah, nice. Search all the lands you
Breeze
wanna.
through. Yeah.
Go ahead, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
But it was tough. I lost
Yeah.
that match actually.
Yeah.
So this new 1-drop from the core set, Elvish Reclamator or something like that, who gets bigger if you have lands in your graveyard, was like
Yes.
constantly
And you
hitting
can
me
sack
for free.
you can sack a land and look for another one or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And then also had some nice shenanigans with the one from Amonkhet where you can play lands out of your graveyard, so the Crucible
Yes. The
of World
snake.
on a stick. And I was surprised how he just finished me off just like that. And funnily enough, we come back to this later, but I faced him off in the finals again. But yeah, anyway, that was round 3. And afterwards, round 4, I played against 4-color Zoo, which is better than it sounds actually.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
they have the Goyfs, they have the Death Shadows, they have the Monasteries with Spears.
Okay.
But I also dropped the match against them. But again, here, the 8 pushes and the 8 crabs just carried me through this.
Yeah. A lot more creature heavy, so it's good. They're more on board. Yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. And this is also a matchup where the Profane Memento really shined. I could just drop one, turn 1, and keep milling, and they couldn't raise the life gain. That was great. Round 5 was against humans. I think humans is not a good matchup, not at all. They have a lot of disruption. They
Very
have
difficult,
fast
yeah.
clock, and they have Talia, which is like the most annoying creature against us, right? You know the fields.
So
You know how it
dumb. You know what? Like, it's not unfair. It's unfortunate. That's what it is. That's what I call it.
Yeah, unfortunate is a great word, yeah.
Yeah.
It never feels good if they drop it on turn 2 and you have your glimpse and everything. You're like, oh no, I cannot even cast it anymore.
Look at your archive traps in your hand, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
man.
Like, oh no. And they don't play fetchlands, right? So you need to find your Field of Ruins. Otherwise, this great card Archive Trap is just dead on your hand.
Yeah.
But somehow, also here, I cannot stress this enough, but having free toughness and blocking like some low humans all day long is just super great.
Yes.
And also the Blood Chiefs first did a really good job in
Amazing.
just
Probably.
getting
Yeah, he's
rid
probably
of all of
insane.
them.
Yeah. I like in terms of 3 drops. Like I think they're only playing like Dranith Magistrate, is that the one, or is that am I thinking of the wrong card here? The the black white legendary, +1 to
I think
+1 to all.
you're isn't it called Kurdo or something? But
General
what they
Kudro,
start
yeah. Of Dranith. General Kudro of Dranith. There you go.
but they
Yeah,
still have
that and Mantis. I think those are the 3 drops.
and
Reflector
Reflector Mage
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
which is
Banned in standard,
quite
yes.
quite annoying.
Yeah. A lot more relevant
Yeah.
when you're playing 8 creatures, yes.
Totally. So I was prepared to lose against them, but kind of managed to go through it also in 3 games. And while I was refreshing from this win, I was like, how did I do this? The next opponent was Boggles, which is super, as you said it, unfortunate, because you have your 8 spot removals and all of them have hex. So we're like, oh boy, it's not going to work.
And even if they play like the O2, they're
Yeah.
like already ahead. They're already ahead because the O2 resolves. You don't get priority. They play an enchantment. They've already drawn a card. Like they're already ahead. You've already lost on that exchange. It doesn't even matter anymore. Yeah, it's just unfortunate.
The good thing was that I've been playing against Boggles like all week long, so I kind of knew
That's great.
how I could win.
Sure.
And for me, that I found the only good way to win against Boggle is that you need to get rid of the enchantment that gives flying, because you cannot do anything
Griff
about
Spoon.
it.
Griff Spoon.
Yeah, for me, this is the most scary one. I don't care about the trample and whatnot, but because I can just put my crabs in there and they're gonna block and buy me time.
Mitigate some of it, yeah.
But once the enchantment hits with the flying, nothing you can do about it. So game 1, I think, was just a close race, but in game 2, I really mulliganed on Force of Negation, and then also Force of Negation, the enchantment that gives flying, and then I could just block for days and manage to win the race.
That's perfect.
So
okay,
highly recommend getting rid of this. And this was also the matchup where Stern Dismissal was great, because of course they dropped the Leyline on me, but I sent it right back on the hand.
Yes. Yeah. And on turn 1 too. That's great. You're not even waiting for Echoing Truth or anything. Yeah.
So I'm very high on the new Stern Dismissal because it's just a 1-drop. I like 1-drops. I'm not afraid of any chalices on 1, and yeah.
I mean, the adage goes that like not only is 2 mana double 1 mana, but like the difference is insane. It's insane. Like there's so many players that don't understand like the actual difference between something costing 1 and something costing 2. It's almost the same as something costing 1 and something costing 3. It's like miles apart, a 1-drop versus a 2-drop.
But, sure. And Modern is so fast, you just need to have like the cheap removals. So you live by the 1-drops and you die by the 1-drops. And
you sound like a legacy player.
Yeah.
What about, okay, quick aside, what do you think of Feed the Swarm? We're talking about enchantment and creature removal. What do you think about Feed the Swarm?
Let me quickly hit it up on Google to have the wording. Feed the Swarm, not that I talk about the wrong card. Get
it up, go for it.
Yeah. So, what is it? Can you repeat the name again?
Yeah. So it's Feed the Swarm.
No, I get it. Yeah.
The black enchantment removal.
No, I know what you mean. Well, first of all, why are they messing with the color pile so heavily? And this is the color.
Come on, you don't want 8-rack to be able to answer Leyline of Sanctity efficiently?
No, they're playing mono black, and you gotta live by it.
Yeah,
no?
I know. This was not great. This was not a great decision. I don't know about this.
But yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a lot to protect our life points, and I feel we cannot afford losing 4 life against something like Boggles just to get rid of the Leyline. So also the sorcery speeds make it even worse. I think it's a nice addition, I guess, for some stuff that plays mono black and wants to get rid of enchantments.
Yes.
But I think for us, many people play around with the color combination. There's the Azorius, UW, and a Sultai list, but we always have blue. And in blue, we have nice answers to enchantment. So I think we should keep the blue enchantment hate and don't lose life about it.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So how were the rest of your matches? I think you just named off 6, so that should have been the 6 into the cut to top 8, I believe, or
exactly. So after Boggles was the win and in, and that was again humans. So faced again Talia.
Was it the same opponent or?
No, it was not the same
Okay,
opponent. It was
perfect.
someone else.
So they don't have
A
any
lot of
knowledge.
humans
Perfect.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was basically the same. So this is a close race. I lost one match, but with Profane Memento, Equipped Incursion, and having a lot of blockers and the fatal pushes, kind of got there.
Yeah. All
But
that
it was
removal.
certainly a close one.
Yeah.
I think I won on one live. Yeah.
Hey, it's the same as winning at 20. Yeah.
It's the same, but my heart beat was like.
yeah. No, physically it's not the same. It's like
Yeah,
it's a stressful event. But okay, so
exactly.
humans was a W. What else?
So then I made a cut to the top 8.
Perfect.
And so I was already happy about it. I think I was way more relaxed being in the top 8 than playing for being in the top 8. So, but the first match was Grixis Shadow, which is a bad matchup, I would say. They have a lot of disruption. They have a fast clock, and the anglers are basically 1 mana 5/5 always for free.
Yeah.
So here also the new tools really saved me. So I bought it in Stern Dismissal again to just get the anglers back on their hand and have them do it all again. And that bought me enough time to win the race, but it was also really, really close. I remember game 3, I managed to screw him on red, and he had only red spells on hand, so got lucky there. But sometimes you also get lucky, yeah.
Okay.
K-command and everything, exactly.
Okay.
So, and then I was super surprised because in the next match, so I played against Death and Texas, and I haven't seen that in ages in Modern. And this matchup is
awful.
Horrific, I would say,
it's awful. It's like worse than Burn, but no one talks about it because no one plays this deck.
Yeah, it's not around. They're like, Death and Texas, well, who cares about it, right?
Yeah.
But then they hit you with the Talia, and even the Leonine Arbiter makes your whole crap fetchland game
awful. And then all of a sudden, Thought-Knot Seer comes down, and you're like, oh, wow, they have threats. Like,
yeah, they got a new tool. I don't know if you've seen this. It's this new Spirit, I believe, from Zendika, which comes down and exiles a permanent. And if it dies, you get like a
oh my god,
token
yes. You get like an XX. Yes. It'll be on screen, but yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. So that's been good for right, because it does actually just permanently get rid of something. It actually does just permanently get rid of something. Okay, yeah, it's not.
You can use Flicker Wisp to get it again, and you can use the Eldrazi one that can cast stuff from the exile to use that card actually. So I was super impressed with the list. Seemed like a clean list, and obviously he or she did super great to get to the semis, right? And we kind of managed to win there. It was a tough one because, as we just said, he has the Talia, everything. I was surprised they didn't hit me with the ley line. I'm not sure if they had it. I don't recall if I saw it in the graveyard, but for sure they didn't like mulligan on it.
Okay.
But also here, it's a creature-based deck. We have the tools to beat stuff like that with the Profane Mementos, with the Crypt Incursion, with the spot removal and the blockers. And yeah,
the spot removal sounds like it's really come through with you for this whole tournament. Like the 4 Blood Chiefs is big. Yeah, for sure.
So for all the matchups I got, more or less all of them, the spot removal just saved the day. It was really, really, really good that I picked that. So and then we already went the final, like at, I don't know, 2 a.m. in the morning, something.
Oh god, yeah.
And it was again the same opponent from round 3. So the guy that was on green, red, white Titan.
Get your revenge.
And he had a clean record. I was like, boy, it's payback time, not again.
Time. And no one's coming out of here with a clean record. Yeah.
Exactly. So and it was a no mercy run from my side. It was a clean 2-0. My opponent played great, really tight plays, but I was just going all out with all the crabs and all the glims.
All the archive traps, yeah. All the field ruins. Okay, good.
But also the last round, I also won on 1 life again. As I said, it's the same as 20, but not for my heart. But yeah, that was the run.
Yeah. That sounds fantastic. Was there, I guess like we've already kind of touched on it a couple times, was there maybe one card that stuck out for you in all of that? I think we've already touched on it, I guess.
So the most wanted card in this tournament certainly was, surprisingly, the Blood Chiefs first. For me, the new push, it just did it all. It got rid of everything that was threatening me. And of course, above that, tier 0, the Ruin Crab, right? I mean,
Okay,
I
yeah. I mean, yeah. That's other than the core package. Yeah, that's spicy
yeah.
inclusion. Did you find? I guess now we're going to be delving more into the list specifically. We've seen how it's done, so let's talk about some of the choices in the
Mm-hmm.
list. And obviously, for those of you watching in the YouTube video, the link is going to be below, along with Alex's primer that he actually updated. It's on the Mill Discord. It's on the Facebook group. It's everywhere. In case you missed it, it's in the description box. Regardless, a lot of the core is there. You have the glimpses, you have the archive traps, crabs, whatever. Blood Chief's Thirst, I guess we've touched on a bit, so we can kind of move away from that.
Yeah, I think so
The
too.
first card I want to address, why the one of Cling to Dust? Why not 0? Why not 2? Why the one of Cling to Dust?
That's a great question. Cling to Dust was a great addition for us. Not only because you can choose between getting some life against some more aggressive strategies as Burn or Prowess, or draw a card against control. But the thing is, as you're running Mesmeric Orb, every time you touch the late game, you can just tap yourself out, even if you don't want to play anything, just to get those cards in the graveyard, in the bin, and the chances are very high that at some point you're gonna mill yourself a Cling to Dust, and you can just escape it for 4 and draw a card or get some life needed. This is a grindy card, and I highly recommend playing it. Every time you wanna play the end game, you wanna grind, this card comes in handy and gets you that extra card or even that extra life. So, and that's why also I find one copy is sufficient, as you can find it more or less every time with the orbs
Okay.
and some self.
Yeah. I know. I mean, like, even I don't know even know if you want to touch on Fraying Sandy. I know you've been a steady proponent of the card. Is there anything you
Yeah.
want to say on the enchantment specifically? Obviously, it's a slam dunk, and it really feels like with the way it interacts with crabs, like on the turn that you play it, it counts all the cards that have already gone. So it almost feels like a no brainer. With playing with the new crabs, the efficiency to which you're putting cards in there, like, again, is there anything specifically you want to say about Fraying Sanity?
I think the only thing I want to shortly touch on this is that I think it's a difficult card to play. You
Mhm.
see that even I cut it down to 2. I'm not running the full playset anymore. As of course it is a clunky 3-drop in a fast turn free modern world. You cannot
Mhm.
just mindlessly slam it every time you have the free mana.
Yep.
So still this card allows explosive turns, allows you comebacks that otherwise would not be possible. Imagine you open this on 40 and you just have some small shenanigans ongoing. This really fast snowballs into milling a lot of cards. And this is also great in control meters because this is a must answer threat from
Yep.
any control player.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that we'll go into it in a second. I guess
Yeah.
so Mesmeric Orb playset
Mhm.
or just the 3 of? You played 3, I believe,
Mhm.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Why not go with the playset? I know a lot of people are a fan of the playset. A lot of people
Sure.
actually hate the card Mesmeric Orb. So how do you
Mhm.
how do you feel about Orb?
I have mixed feeling about all. Um, One big advantage, colorless, you can more or less always play it. The thing is, there are decks where it's just not that great. Some decks just don't tap all their stuff every turn and it ends up being 2 mana mill free or something. Of course, every time you try to get into a grind game, this card is great, and that's why I'm still sold on it. But I cut it. I cut one of them, so I played 3 just because for now I'm heavily on 1-drops, and I think previously we talked about that shortly, and
Mm-hmm.
I just had to cut some cards. And I didn't want to cut 1-drops as I wanted to have a fast deck that either can interact a lot or can deploy some of the passive stones that we have and then get into the interaction section.
Okay. I think we're gonna go. I would argue pretty in depth into the sideboard here in a second. I think that's one of the things a lot of people wanted me to ask you about. But before we
Sure.
do, last card, which will tie in Ashiok Dream Render. Why in the main board? Why in the sideboard? Why play 2 and why play it at all? I guess it's a loaded question. It's definitely a divisive card.
For sure. And it was actually the last card that I added to this list, even after having the sideboard and everything ready. So I set up this deck, and I was pretty happy with everything. And I was having 2 more slots, and I was thinking, so do I want to have the full playsets of the Orb and more Sanities? And I decided against it, just because I think Planeswalker are the best card type in the game. they're usually just being so good. And if you can drop this, your opponent needs to interact with it. He needs to attack it, saves you some life, and the upsides are great. Imagine playing against a graveyard strategy, you can just dump it, or against search-based strategies as value town decks or Titan decks, right? So I felt in order to step up the game and compete with all the good decks, you also need to play the best card type Planeswalker, and it turned out pretty okay.
Okay, and so you obviously you decided that into your main board. Did you now transitioning into the sideboard here? I don't know. I guess that's that's probably for the next session. I'm gonna save that question. I keep thinking about things, but we'll talk about some future decisions that you may want to make with the deck or some potential changes. Let's talk about what you have now. A lot of people were wondering, as I kind of took your sideboard verbatim in that last stream I did. Sure. How did you feel? Like you're obviously high on Profane Memento, but a lot of people were wondering, myself included, why only one Crypt Incursion? Why Profane Memento in a meta where arguably you face a lot of humans actually, so it worked out for you. But where I would argue that Prowess and Burn, it's not really the type of life gain you'd want. Why did you feel like that was your package of life gain that you went with?
So previously, also in February, January, I had a full playset in the sideboard. Why is that? This card just saves your life against every creature-based strategy. And the good thing and the big advantage about Crypt Incursion is that you can just play it early and keep milling. There's no delay. You don't need to have 3 mana open to play the Crypt Incursion while you want to have, I don't know, play to Fatal Push or something like that. So having the option or ability to deploy and threat, and the threat is here something that gains us life. So I think it's great. It's a great tool. Also that it's colorless is great. And the reason why I was playing it initially is because it totally destroys Dredge. Dredge is a difficult matchup. You basically start at 8 life with 4 Creeping Chills, right?
Yeah.
And if you just deploy this turn 1, you don't need to do a lot of stuff after that, because the Dredge player will just give you so much life. And that's why I'm running this and Crypt Incursion, and the reason why I cut it to 2 is exactly what I said. I didn't feel like there's a lot of creatures around, and that's why I cut it to 2. But now, of course, in the run I had, I was happy to have them.
Okay, and you've already highlighted the idea behind Stern Dismissal. So I think we're fine with that. Just kind of creature removal, good answers against Bogles and Leyline of Sanctity. How did you feel about Force of Negation? Because it feels like a lot of times when people consider Force, it's really for attacking a specific type of deck, maybe like Neoform or something. So why Force of Negation?
Force of Negation in 2 copies is basically my housekeeping card in the sideboard. I have it with me for the case that I encounter something unfair, basically. For this specific run, it was not super necessary, only for the Boggles thing, which I mentioned earlier. But I like to have it against Planeswalker, Khan, Teferi. These are all threats that I like to not hit the battlefield. And also if you face something like Combo or Ad Nauseam, something like that, it's just a great tool. The thing is, what I feel, and it's also why I'm not high on Drown, is that Mill is not great at not playing stuff. You really want to use your mana in your
proactive deck.
Yeah, exactly. So, and with the Force, even though it's card disadvantage for sure, you can just play your stuff, say go open it, and he's like, nice, I can play stuff, and you're like, wait a second, might as well not resolve that.
In the matchups where it's worth it, it overperforms.
Yes, and I think it's worth contributing or committing the 2 sideboard slots in here.
I mean, especially, it felt like I who knows if Belcher is a flasher in the pan or not. Obviously, Belcher is
exactly.
It's
great
a deck.
example.
Now it is a deck. I don't know if it's one that people have to consider, but definitely at least against Neoform, this is something to very much consider. It didn't seem like Neoform was too affected. I think a lot of people were thinking those green spell lands would be an inclusion just because of the Raptor, but at least it seems like it's worth it for that matchup. I think the final card that a lot of people were curious about, instead of maybe playing more copies of Ashiok Dreamrender, maybe some more surgicals included. Why the Ravenous Traps?
Ravenous Trap, as you might know, is my favorite graveyard hate card. Why? I just find that having no mana cost is not a balanced strategy in Magic. So same thing.
Don't hurt Manamorphos like that. You have to use mana for that card.
True. If I was in charge of Magic Design, I would kill all free mana spells. I don't think it's healthy for anything. But yeah,
Once Upon a Time is so flavorful, though. Go on. I don't agree. That card should be banned. That's fine. It's so flavorful, though.
Yeah. So the thing is, same thing as with Force of Negation. I don't have to have any mana. I can just keep milling, and if I hit something that I don't like, I just fire off a Ravenous Trap, and it's be gone. And the reason why I put 4 copies in here is actually because people were already starting to put Emrakul reshuffling effects in their decks before the challenge. And I was quite afraid to hit someone that just hates mid.
I'm very my stream while you were playing, I was doing a stream on YouTube, and in the league, I raged out of an 0-4 league on stream because I played the Mill Mirror twice and lost, and I was so tired of it.
Wow.
I was so tired. I was like, because I hate playing the Mirror in Mill. I think it's one of the least skill intensive, most boring things in the world, because I think it just comes down to opening hand card quality, which is just like the Tron Mirror. It's just, do you have natural Tron, and are you on the play? Anyway, added an Emrakul myself. And in my Sultai Mill deck, I'm playing Gaia's Blessing in the main board as well, because I have to be ready for the Mirror.
You went to the dark side, Chef.
Yeah. I just... Oh, man. Oh, God, I hate playing the Mirror. And I didn't think this was something... Stupidly, that I didn't think this was something we should be prepared for, but I think
now we need to be even more prepared. I mean, I just played a game against Control, and they hit me with this enchantment for hybrid mana, which basically says that cards don't enter the graveyard anymore.
Yes,
but
Wheel of Sun and Moon. There you go.
Exactly, thank you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense in their Jeskai control build, and I'm like, dude, why do you hate me so much?
Oh my God. I have people ask me this all the time. Every time, like, on Twitch especially, like, you have people that don't play Mill that come onto the stream because it's a modern stream. You're like, how do you beat Wheel of Sun and Moon? I'm like, why do you come on here to ask me this? Well, I don't know. Like, Echoing Truth or Uro, I don't know. I'll attack you with Uro.
Dismissal right now, right?
Yeah. So I said you had an answer to it, to be fair. Me? Definitely not running answers to that. But
yeah. No, I was afraid, and I just got to place it in, and I was like, okay. If it comes down to it, I have it.
Did you find? I mean, it sounds like in the matchups you were playing against, at least you wouldn't have needed it. You know, you played some humans, you played some Titans, so it was good. At least you were prepared for it. And again, what's nice about Ravenous Trap is obviously for those watching this right now who are least familiar with it, remember that the trigger and the condition to make it 0 is only 3 cards. Which is 1 landfall trigger off any one of our 8 creatures. It is extremely easy to trigger and very on flavor, so it's very easy to play. Transitioning away from this, let's talk about, now you address some of it too. We have to be ready for the Mirror. We also have to be ready for hate. How does that make you feel in terms of your current list? What are some, maybe not even how you would change your list specifically, because maybe that might be a little too much to ask, but what are some cards you're looking at? Maybe more copies of Ashiok, maybe different types of graveyard hate. What are some things you're looking at going into like future MTGO or paper events or whatever?
Actually, the thing I'm least happy with is the mana base right now. It hurt myself that I needed to cut Sheldog Eye, but I think so many 1-drops I could just not afford to tap land. So first thing that I think that might change over time is the mana base. But talking to your question, like more thinking about hate or mirrors or what people might come up with.
No, go for it. If you have something to talk about with the mana base, go for it. The mana base is always an interesting conversation. People talk about how many fetches, how many fields, blah, blah. Go at it. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about mana bases like past week, I guess, ever since I came back for playing competitive Modern. And the thing is, previously, how I had it was I had 1 less Watery Grave, and I think just 2 Dark Slick Shores.
Sure.
And what I ended up doing is, the thing is, I don't want to have more than 4 colorless sources. And that's why my package, since quite some time now, is 3 Field of Ruin and 1 Mikokoro, which I'm quite high on that card. But the thing is, I was lacking fetch targets. In testing, I always ended up having the fetch land, but no more sources to get. And I'm only playing 4 basics. I love to play 5 basics, but I cannot really find a space to squeeze it in. I also don't feel like playing 23 lands. I think 22 is fine. But so that is something.
High. As someone who floods way too much, 23 is way too high. Yeah.
But 4 basics is really borderline. I wouldn't go any lower. And that's why I decided to get 1 more Watery Grave, get rid of the Shelldog, and I also went up in 1 Dark Six Shores, as with this list, with so many 1-drops, I really, really wanted to have blue or black on turn 1. And Dark Six Shores basically just does the job.
Especially since one of the things, I guess we forgot to touch on this, but we'll touch on Mikikoro in a second and go back to the changes. But in terms of one of the discussions I was having with a lot of the members of the Discord and some people on my stream, you were playing 4 basics. Why? So I guess the difference between your mana base is mine beyond the Mikikoro, I'm running some less Dark Six Shores and less Watery Graves and opting for more basics, just because I want to work with a slightly less painful mana base that I can find more of through my fetches. I don't know. Why did you opt for, obviously, fast lands, which are great in a world where people might be playing more Boil? More on that later. But so why did you opt for 4 basics and more Watery Graves, more Dark Slick Shores, instead of just more islands?
So Dark Six Shores for sure, because I wanted to have that safe turn 1 play, having the option to either play a crab or push something away. And Watery Grave I added because I wanted to fetch it, and I might as well change a Watery Grave in the future for a basic, because we're also running Vista, right, which also just hits the basics. I think it's totally legit to exchange them. But for now, for this event, was the same reasoning as with the Dark Six Shores. I just wanted to have the option to find either black or blue, because regarding to the situation, you need one of these.
Yeah, no, I think for your list especially, I think it, like the Dark Six Shores, I really liked the more I thought about it, because again, 4 Blood Chiefs Ascension, 4 Fatal Push, alongside 8 Crab. Dark Six Shores is an extremely powerful 1-drop that does not cost any life. So I can definitely agree on the Shores in your list for sure. Mikikoro, before we head back into the changes, Mikikoro, talk about it.
So Mikikoro was my addition in January. I'm not sure if I was like the first one to put it. Don't quote me on that. But ever since I put it in there, I saw it rising in lists, and I also did not cut it ever since. Why is that? Why do we want a land that draws us both a card? Doesn't seem too great on the first sight, but the thing is, Mill is a resource-based deck. And at some point, you might just run out of these resources.
Sure.
And what I usually do with Mikokoro, like 95% of the time, is just if we both end up in the top deck mode, in the end step of the opponent, I activate the ability and we both draw a card. I go into my turn, draw an extra card. So basically I have 2 cards, and it's likely that one of these cards is something that helps me out to further advance my game plan. And I'm totally fine if my opponent draws some sorcery speed card that doesn't affect my turn at all.
Okay.
Yeah. It's also random upside that you can beat Nexus of Fate with this card. So it was important like 1 or 2 weeks ago when everyone was playing Nexus of Fate.
So many people ask me, like, how does Mill beat Nexus of Fate? I don't know, mill them. Like, Nexus of Fate doesn't inherently by itself do anything. It's just this extra card you have to mill. Like, it's, like I tell people over and over again, in paper, it's a game loss to cast Nexus over and over again. That's a game loss. And in MTGO, I'm more than happy for you to run out your clock, because you actually have to click 7 different lands, cast this, draw the card, do this over again. I'm more than happy for you to run out your clock, but
it's an annoying card though.
Yes.
Again,
no. I will never defend it. I will never defend it. The fact that it doesn't enter the graveyard is the single dumbest thing in the world. That is so inappropriate for a card. It needs to enter the zone. It needs to enter the graveyard. This card is not above the graveyard. It's blue.
100% with you, yeah.
Like it's blue. Like
shame on you, whoever designed that card.
yeah. Oh, it's a box stopper too. Like how do you get this in paper anyway?
Oh well, we're opening a whole new area of rants.
All right, back to the changes.
Yeah.
What are some other cards? We went into a land discussion. I guess let's answer that question. What are some cards you're looking at into potentially adding, potentially facing off against, and what are you thinking about right now?
So right now I have my eyes on the Mesmeric Orb. Again, in a very fast meta, this card does less work as if you were grinding and everyone is playing mid-range or control. So if I have a look at the meta, I think this card maybe... Yeah, I'm really not sure about it. I settle for free for now and I'm happy with it. But certainly this is the card that I have my eyes on in order to change it. Maybe back to the playset or maybe even two. But this is totally meta dependent. Maybe if, let's say, Dredge is on the rise again, everyone plays Graveyard, I can totally see, I don't know, cutting an orb and playing a third Ashiok, something like that.
Yeah. I know me personally, like I was trying to get on the train of telling people, like, there's a lot of people that don't like Ashiok Dream Render. There's a lot of people that don't like the card at all. And I was trying to tell people, I'm like, look, everyone knows that Mill is a deck now. And even before Zendikar, before people actually knew it was a deck, because now people know it's a deck. Now people will hate it. But I was trying to tell people, like, this is probably the single greatest tool that Mill has right now. Just because Ruin Crab, and if you want to play Maddening Cacophony, solve some of the problems of like, oh, what if we get around Hexproof? Well, now you have two great tools against Hexproof. So how do you deal with the shuffle effects? Because I was actually listening to the Dive Down podcast. I don't know if you listen to them yourself. I was just listening to them, and they were bringing up with the Aspiring Spike, they're bringing up Ruin Crab, and like, oh, what happens with Mill? What happens with this deck?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, Aspiring Spike's like, oh, it just sucks how, Mill will always be defeated by just the shuffle effect. And I'm screaming at my mic right now, Ashiok, Dream Render, like.
But... Yeah, well, as we talked about it earlier, I think it's just needed that we also have Planeswalker, as these cards are just too powerful. And the static of Ashiok just randomly hoses a lot of decks. So right now, in the current meta situation, I'm more than happy to have my 2 copies. And if I deploy them in the right situation, they can move the game around.
I've even found, I don't know what your experience is, even against Prowess, actually, I found that Ashiok against Prowess has been insane, surprisingly. Just shutting off Bedlam Reveler, shutting up Lava Darts, and just so many random shenanigans like that. I've brought in Ashiok against them to extreme success to help me through. But I think, like, primarily the fault of that is also the fact that, like, Crypt Incursion just, like, is terribly inefficient against that deck, which is unfortunate. Like, they can hit you with so much damage all at once that, like, all right, you may be able to squeeze out 18 life, but their 2 creatures can do, like, 20 plus damage to you on 1 turn anyway. So. And
more realistically, by the time you can cast it, it's more like 9 life or something like that, because you didn't really get into the middle game already.
Yeah.
I do get the points of you having that card in to get rid of, like, Lava Dart, which is so strong against us, because they always have it, right? As we mill them.
Is the single most frustrating card to play against.
I found, for me, Ashiok was always too slow, unfortunately, so I ended up boarding it out.
Oh, my general strategy against it, surprisingly, like every single time I run up against it, it's literally take out my mill package. I've all my archive traps, all my Mesmeric Orbs, every single piece of removal I can bring in, I shove it into the main board. Yeah. And then literally Hedron Crab and Ashiok are my win cons. I like, with your list, it would take out the mill package. You have so much removal. I love it. Ashiok, Hedron Crab. That's how I win. I just want to be able to just take everything out. I don't know, that's how I play the matchup. It's managed to pan out for me, but is there anything else you're looking towards? Maybe different types of graveyard hate. I've had some people ask me about Nihil Spellbomb, or I surprisingly like Relic of Progenitus, or why not Extirpate? I don't know. What are you thinking?
So if I would have to choose a different graveyard hate, I think I would just go for Gravedigger's Cage.
Yep.
As,
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Yep.
Right now, the graveyard is not really about like getting out of it again. So the thing with Gravedigger's Cage is the same as with, like, let's say Memento or whatnot. You can just deploy it early in the game, and your opponent needs to have answers, or the game is over. So there's Uro that is affected. There's the whole dredge package, and also some shenanigans as with Lava and stuff. So this is my go-to graveyard hate after Ravenous Trap.
Okay.
What I cannot advise is playing Leyline of the Void, because it shuts down our own game plan way too strongly.
I have way too many people asking me why, like, arguing with me about Leyline of the Void. Thank you. Please just shout it out. I hate Leyline of the Void so much.
Yeah. Also, I hate the design of Leylines having this pre-game action. Is also feels.
Oh, that's a deeper
weird.
discussion. That is a.
Totally. But yeah, I cannot advise it. It shuts down our own game plan. Sanity cannot trigger anymore if you have not thought about it. And the Profane Memento does not trigger anymore. Crypt Incursion does not trigger anymore.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And you shut down your visions. So you see, half the deck does not work properly anymore if the opponent doesn't have any graveyard. So I highly don't recommend it.
To extend on that for everyone else, like Alex touched on the important points, but the people will say, "Oh, why are you playing Ashiok? Why are you playing Rest in Peace?" Because those spells can come down when you want them to. The choice is huge. Because I can, or Alex can, or whoever it is, you can mill first. You can cast a Visions. You can cast another card. You can cast a Crypt. Then do that if you need to. The choice is big. You're stuck into one route by just casting Leyline of the Void. And I don't know how you feel about this as well, but I find that Leyline of Sanctity is the only worthwhile Leyline effect simply because this deck is such a quality deck, not a quantity deck, that we want specific cards, and it's very difficult for a quality deck to mulligan for an effect that it can do better in other avenues. Whereas Leyline of Sanctity provides a unique effect that arguably can be worth it depending on how you're playing it. But Leyline of the Void, you have just play Ravenous Trap. I don't know. That's always been my, literally my default. It's like, I don't personally play it. But why would you not play Ravenous Trap over Leyline of the Void? Like, you'll always meet Rav's condition. I don't know. Like, you'll always meet that condition.
So also the thing with Leyline is, which is not to be forgotten, is that it's just such a awful top deck. There's nothing worse when you're in a dire situation and you draw a Leyline of the Void.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. And again, it's just like, what did that effect gain you that another spell couldn't? Whereas, again, Leyline Sanctity, what did that effect gain you? Well, against a burn deck, you dodge like all the lava spikes, all of the X spells. So there's a tangible effect, whereas, against Dredge, arguably a surgical extraction on Creeping Chill would have almost had the same effect as this Leyline of the Void as you start to develop your spells and, get some other stuff down. But yes, Leyline of the Void is a big no-no. Go on.
And also on what you touched previously is why would I play Ashiok over Leyline? For those who wonder, you also still get the trigger for, let's say, Sanity or Profane Memento. Yes. It does touch the graveyard. Yes. So this is a very important point.
100%. Yes. And I mean, look, the static ability is so important. Like another counter argument that people tell me is that, your opponent can't fetch. It doesn't work with your archive traps. But just giving yourself that control is more important than your opponent freely doing so, because I think you can speak to it. You play in a lot more competitive environments than most, where people will fetch favorably for them, but not favorably for you. So when you go to cast your archive trap, it will likely get countered. It will likely get interacted with. Whereas you can Field of Ruin on your whims and get that search off. So the Ashiok is much more in our favor.
Yeah. Also keep in mind that with Ashiok, still, if we Field of Ruin them, they need to search. It's only their spells and abilities. So our Field of Ruin, Archive Trap, Draw Free package still works with it.
Are there some cards, I guess as we start rounding off the sideboard section, are there some cards that you feel are close for you putting into the sideboard? Like, obviously, you're putting in, like, a couple Stern Dismissal, a couple Forces. Are there maybe some cards that if you had that 16, 17 slot, or maybe a card becomes bad in your sideboard, what are you immediately putting in?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to have like a 20 card sideboard package or what.
Yeah.
So if I had like more space, one thing that I felt so sad about not playing is for instance, Mystical Dispute. I love counter magic, and I love having like this 1 mana counter your Teferi, counter your Cryptic Command. But I felt that for this event, I will not face so many blue decks, and if I will face them, they're still okay matchup.
Yes,
I'm not too worried about facing them.
Yeah.
So I cut it. So that for sure. But if I had more slots, Mystical Debut is a slam dunk into the sideboard. And I think I would just rack up the numbers of the others. But also the card that I love to play is Nazet. Again, Planeswalker are just great.
Such a sleeper. Like, I can't even convince people on this card because you have to resolve it. Like, you just have to resolve it, start using it, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Like that opt your opponent does nothing. This ability to dig for an Ensnaring Bridge, dig for a Damnation, or whatever it is. Like, I don't even know. How do you convince people on Narset? Because I can't. Like, I just tell people, like, put it in your deck, put it on the battlefield one day, and you'll realize how amazing it is. But
yeah, I totally agree with you. I love to have a Nazet every time I face some mid-range as Junt or some control shell. Because, of course, we will lose resources to their discard, to their counters, and we need to refill our fuel. And Nazet is just doing such a great job at doing that. And also, like, the static against control-based decks is insane.
Yeah. So, surprisingly, like, it is one of the, like, no one's telling you to mainboard Narset. It's just when it's like Force. When it performs, it overperforms. It never underperforms. That's not the point of it. That's why we're not main decking it. We don't want it to underperform. We want it to overperform.
Exactly. So in summary, coming back to your question, if I had more slots, I would totally rack up the value package and get some counter magic in. I think we're good for spot removal and dealing with breaches, and it would be great to have some more tools against the other aspects of Modern.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I think we'll start getting into the kind of final section of the interview here. So just kind of some thoughts here. What are your thoughts moving forward in this post Zendikar Rising meta as a mill player? What are you thinking of going into these games? Are you scared of certain cards? We already kind of touched on this already. How are you changing that up? And what are some decks that you actually would recommend people look out for more often? Maybe more prowess, maybe more Titan. What are you thinking of?
Good question. I think I might just retire and live with my Modern Challenge for now.
Okay, yeah.
But seriously speaking, I think what we need to expect from Modern is that it just keeps being faster and faster and faster. I mean, now we have the Belcher thing coming up. Is it a real deal? Then we have some turn 1 kill decks potentially. There's Neoform all around. Provis usually kills you also super fast. And I think there's like a whole world of fast aggro decks. I think they're not dead in Modern. I think they're a big threat. Then we have a smaller portion of mid-rangey deck. I think it's basically just Junt, and more recently we have the green-red thing, which kind of evolved out of Ponza.
Yes,
got rid of all the bad Ponza cards. And
Stone Rain isn't that great. Let's just play Seasoned Pyromancer. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Which I found very interesting, because a year ago, if someone would bring Ponza to a tournament, I was like, okay,
this is what I'm saying. I had someone on stream just say this, like, address this today. I'm like, if anyone ever tells me that Ponza's been a tier 1 deck, you're a liar. Ponza's been one of the single worst decks in Modern ever.
Yeah.
Like it's so weird how, like, this random mid-range strategy playing Glorybringer of all cards, like a standard staple from Amonkhet.
Yeah.
Is just able to read like 5 drops. 4,
did you bring
5
the
drops.
Deck or what?
Yeah,
exactly.
But
But that said, I think while midrange will always be one of the like things that is in modern, I think the variety is very low. I think there's really just Junt, and then for now we have this green red thingy, but I cannot
yep.
see that 1 year from now being still there. But Junt for sure
Mm-hmm.
will never leave. And then of course the control decks. Right now, control kind of died for the sins of Uro because they just slammed Uro in it. Now it's some also mid-rangey value deck,
Yeah,
but not
people are
like
like blue, white. Where's your breeding pools? Like,
yeah, exactly. And also with the Stoneforge Mystic Edition, they got like half a year ago something.
yeah.
So they kind of moved from this hard control. My only win con is the Teferi for 5 mana that shuffles himself again every time. I think these times are gone for now. Maybe we get some nice buns shaking up the format. I'd love to have like a hard control deck. I think these matches are fun to play, even if a lot of people disagree with me on that.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
that's
it's
fair. That's
very
fair.
skill intensive. You need to find that exact window where you can attack the control player, and both players need to play on their highest to get through it. I'd love to see such decks again, but I think for this Uro needs to go. And yeah, maybe tomorrow is the lucky day where this actually happens, but I don't think so. So, but yeah, that's where I think where Magic Modern is heading, and I'm surprised, or let's say I'm looking forward to see what really is going to happen.
Okay. I think my next couple of questions may seem a little out of order, but what is
Sure.
maybe something that like we already have kind of the release schedule for the next year. Is there maybe a card that you're hoping would be printed or some type of effect that you're looking for that maybe Magic or Modern is missing that you're looking for, maybe in the Viking set in Strixhaven or what are you looking for there?
Something that I'm excited for and that I was wishing for like years, but now we got a crab, so I'm satisfied. I always wanted to have like a great suspend skill. Something like Rift Bolt, but for mill, like a glimpse of the unthinkable, suspended for 1, and then it comes down turn 2 and you can just have it. And I think there's this Time Spiral remaster set coming in somewhere next year.
Oh, those are gonna be some nice old borders. Yeah.
Yes, and I think Suspend was like a thing from the old Time Spiral. So I would be super happy to see this mechanic again. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
It's nicely designed, but I'm not sure if they will print it, but that's what I'm looking for, right?
Okay.
So something like that. That would be cool.
Okay. And I guess what is something that you think Mill is missing? I had this conversation with Delthar and it got a little deep in terms of just like understanding the deck. What is like we have Ruin Crab. I think that's not something anyone could have predicted. I don't think no one wished for Ruin Crab because no one thought Wizards would do it. No one thought Wizards would actually make a technical upgrade to Huge Crab. So we got it. What is something that you think the deck is still struggling with, and maybe it might be putting you on the spot. Maybe what is a card design that you could see address that hole in Modern or Mill?
Yeah.
Sorry,
that's really a tough question. If you would ask me that before Zendika, I have like a whole list of things that I feel are having issues. But for now, I really was thinking that we were missing a good one drop to add consistency to the deck. We got it with Ruin Crab. I was thinking we are missing some interaction for Sheep Threats. We got the Blood Sheep's first trade. So for now, I'm more or less happy. But if I would need to think of something that is like really something Mill would benefit from, I think it would be some cheap way to, I don't know, maybe mill something more on instant speed. Because for now, having all the sorcery speed stuff is okay, I think, for what we want to do with the deck. But if we have more instant speed mill sources, we can do a more control-y way of playing mill. Just passing the turn, seeing if we need to interact with the threat from the opponent, and if not, just end step hit him with some mill spells. I think that would benefit greatly. We would benefit greatly, but I'm not sure if we will get it. But I was also not sure that we get the crab. So
yeah, we got there. I know. Me personally, I my take on it is, I feel like Mill, I think, struggles a lot with aggro strategies. I think.
Yeah.
Me personally, again, I don't know how you feel on this. I think Mill falls into the archetype of strategies that is mid-range. I don't think the deck is control. I don't think the deck is tempo. That might be arguable. I don't think it's aggro either. So falling into mid range, and I think that we are able to. We struggle against mid range mirrors. So we struggle against Jund. We struggle against Shadow. We're fine against the tempo decks. We're fine against the control decks, and we're fine against the creature strategies. I think the big hole is aggro strategies. Red based aggro strategies are an extreme difficulty. And one card that I personally would like to see, again, just gauging your interest in it, is potentially a Crypt Incursion clone, whether that be at the same CMC, whether that be instant or sorcery. One that exiles or counts the number of instant or sorceries in... the way I designed it was both graveyards. So I said, I believe it was 1 black, 1 colorless for a sorcery speed card, trying to balance it. Each you choose either sorcery or instant, and each sorcery or instant is exiled from both graveyards, and you gain life equal to the amount exiled that way. So my idea was essentially trying to find a card that was balanced for the control decks. I didn't want something that black-based control decks could just wield against all types of decks, because they won't want to lose their own instants because of Snapcaster Mage. They won't want to lose their own sorceries. But for Mill, we don't care. We've moved past mission briefing. We don't care anymore. Yeah. So like gaining 2 life off of your own instant and sorceries, hitting burn for that, even lava darts and stuff. So I don't know how you feel about a card like that. I think personally, if that card was to be printed, Mill would need a ban, because I think we would actually have an answer to everything. I actually think we would have an answer to everything, and there's no way to actually address this. But
for sure, an interesting take. I just need to think about it. So, thing is, if the red aggro-based strategies move more in the creature-heavy direction, as like the old Burn used to, then the card would be less strong. But for sure, if you have all these Provost builds with the small creatures and all this cheap Dart and Bolt effects, that card I can see that it's like saving our life. I'm not sure if it would be the one that...
I might be like speaking in hyperbole there. Yeah. So I think... I feel like it's the big hole, and like, you know, it's like if we go into creature metas, we got Crypt. If we move into control metas, Mesmeric Orb and Rune Crab already do it. So
yeah, for sure.
I think
I'd like to see that card, so might as well get it printed, no?
yeah. Talk to the devs right now. 2 years from now, their cycle. I think their print cycle is like 2 years or something. So if we give them something right now, we'll have to wait 2 years. Yeah.
If it gets printed, we talk about it again, and we're gonna test it.
We'll call back to this moment. I'm gonna say we did it.
Yeah.
So, I guess like maybe some specific cards. How do you feel about? We've already talked about free spells, and I want to talk about some different divisive things that exist in Magic. What are your feelings on Planeswalkers? You think they're strong? Planeswalkers in general, should they be here? Should they not?
I think they should not be here. I think Planeswalkers are way too strong. They are more or less never balanced. It's a card type that completely turns the game around. It's like having the opportunity to make something in the game for free, just having the ability is too strong, and I think it's not balanced at all. I mean, best example, there was Oko previously, and it completely turned around all the formats. It's still going strong in Legacy, and I think it's going to leave there soon as well. And I think we will have this problem moving forward, because of course you cannot just print lame Planeswalker now, because everyone knows, okay, but you remember Teferi, that was cool, so why is this Planeswalker not bad? And then the next thing is a 2-mana Teferi, and you see how this snowballs, and I think Planeswalker are not a good addition for constructed play, and for limited even less. I just played the pre-release of Zendika, and someone dumped the Jace on me and Nissa, and I was like, okay,
like what?
GG's.
Like you start looking at Nissa Shadowed Battles, and you're like, okay, so there's card advantage over there, and there's recursion over here, there's cheating of mana over here, and you're just trying to play a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and your opponent's playing 7 drops over there on turn 4.
I think we could play less frustrating Magic if Planeswalker were not around, but now they are, and we gotta deal with it and play them ourselves, right? If you cannot beat it, join them, right? That's why we have Ashiok with us.
I had to ask, because I feel like this was definitely an I feel like that's generally an opinion that more enfranchised Magic players have. I found that, and I've grown to be a part of that circle as well. Where if Planeswalkers were to go, I would be upset, but it would probably, in a lot of ways, be a net positive. I think you're right on the scaling issue. Like I think of Liliana of the Veil and Ren 6, where every Liliana printed from Liliana of the Veil has been worse. Which it's literally been worse. And Ren 6 is just, oh my god, what a friggin' marquee for a 2-mana Planeswalker. That walker does everything. It interacts with the, regardless of how meaningless it is. It interacts with the board. It has graveyard recursion in a format full of cycling lands, and the ultimate is like game winning. It's game winning.
I mean, it's single-handedly removed Death and Tax It from Legacy, right? Because you can just ping every single.
Oh yeah. Oh man, Pleasant Kenobi. Vince was not happy about that one. Yeah, he was not happy about that one.
And I get it, because it's no fun, because you have a cool deck, you have a strategy, you want to deploy some creatures, some instants, some sorceries. They do their stuff, and then you just dump the Planeswalker, and you have like a ton of activations, and I think it's too much.
That's what and that's part of it. Like, people don't get it. It's like, why don't you just counter it? But it's like, you don't get it. This isn't a shuffle effect. This isn't Emrakul. This isn't a spell. This is a permanent that does the thing you hate over and over again. They are casting the same spell over and over again. Like, and you can't stop it. No one plays Trickbind. Don't talk to me about Trickbind. No one plays that. But
and also most of the played Planeswalker also locks you out of the game. For instance, 3-mana Teferi. And suddenly you play not Magic anymore, but Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
Oh, that was like, oh my god. I like cringed when I saw that. I looked at this, I'm like, this isn't a fair Magic card. No one looked at Teferi Time Raveler and thought this was a fair Magic card.
Yeah, and also I don't think anyone likes to play against it.
No.
Or even with it.
No. It's not like, oh wow, this is gonna be a tough game of Magic. Like,
it's like,
great, like, oh man, imagine turning Archmage's Charm into a sorcery. Oh god. Let's go into I guess maybe a quick lightning round. I'm going to ask you a bunch of super random Magic questions. Most of them are going to be more so funny, but like, okay.
Okay, sure.
Emrakul or 5 squirrels?
Squirrels.
If you
just hate Emrakul. Yeah.
If you resolve Necropotence, do you know what you know Necropotence?
Yeah.
If you resolve Necropotence, you have no cards in hand, but you have 10 life. What do you do? What would you do? This isn't a right or wrong. What would you do? You have no cards in hand. You have a Necropotence. Yeah. I'll give you a bonus. You got an Ensnaring Bridge.
Yeah.
You got an Ensnaring Bridge. You got 0 cards. What do you do?
Pay 9 life and see what's going on.
There you go.
Go hard or go home.
Like, that's literally the only answer. I love it. Okay,
exactly,
yeah. What is your... This might be... I don't know. Maybe this is putting you on the spot. I love this question, though. What is your Doomsday pile?
Oof, you mean like in Legacy or what?
Or like, yeah. Let's say you're playing Commander. You resolve Doomsday. And obviously, the next 5 cards are anything you want to win the game. What is your Doomsday pile? This might be a little... You can pass on this one.
No, I get the question. Because I'm playing Storm in Legacy, and every now and then there's also the Doomsday version of it, right?
Yeah.
So, but let's see. My 5 card that win the game on the spot.
Oh, I love this question. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to answer this. You're a better player than me. I would not be able to answer this, but go for it.
I think it's 4 Archive Traps and 1 Goblin Guide for the Disrespect. That's the only correct answer, of course.
That was great. The Goblin Guide for the Disrespect. Yeah. Okay. I can't. Okay. What is 1 card you would unban from the modern ban list?
That's a tough one.
You can pull up the ban list if you want. That's fine. I don't personally have it off the top of my head, but
give me a quick check. But for the memes, I don't have to check it. Splinter Twin, give it back to us. Give me the memes.
Okay.
I live by them.
Look. This is actually important. If Splinter Twin was to be unbanned tomorrow, would it break Modern?
No.
Why?
Well, so I have to admit
I'm not saying
that
you're wrong, by the way.
Splinter
I
Twin,
just think this is a good question. Go for it.
Splinter Twin was before my time, so I only have the stories from all the
Myself as
boomers
well.
around me
I
that
started
keep
the
telling me.
fall after Splinter Twin. I have no idea what was going on.
And every now and then they come, oh, Alex, remember, oh no, you're too young. In ancient times, when we had the Fun Police, Splinter Twin, and then we had Eldrazi event, I'm like, it was like 1 year before I started. It's not like 50 years or something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
In the ancient
so I
times.
do like, again, the idea of having a control deck that keeps the format in check. And I'd like to force people to interact. And if the need is to unban Splinter Twin, then I'm down for it. I think Modern has moved so far away from the Modern that Splinter Twin was in that it should be totally fair. There's so many new tools, like Force and stuff. So I think you can keep that in check, and I think it would have the same impact as unbanning Stoneforge Mystic, which is none at all. It was totally fine.
After a
Nobody
while,
cared.
especially after the first couple of months, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Stoneforge, Batterskull, Sword of Light
Yeah.
and something." Like
Totally fine.
Yeah. I think I think you're right. A lot of people are like, "Oh, but imagine playing Splinter Twin with Teferi Time Raveler and Force of Negation." I'm like, first of all, that sounds like a lot of card disadvantage, and that sounds like a lot of tempo loss. I don't think playing Teferi Time Raveler on 3 actually wins you the game on turn 4. So, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But certainly there are a lot of cards that I'd love to push on the ban list in Modern.
That was my next question. Go for it. Give me 2 cards.
Yeah.
2 cards.
Uro and Veil of Summer.
Ooh, Earl too. God, I'm a personal lover of Earl. I'm a personal lover of Earl. Yeah. I understand the Earl argument. I won't go there because you're gonna hurt me. The more you talk about it, you're gonna hurt me. Veil of Summer, go for it. We all know this argument. Go for it. Let me hear it.
Veil of Summer is a 1-mana cryptic command.
Oh, God, it's so awful.
God, it's play design. Awful. Who in the world checked this card and was like, might
this
as well
is okay. You see, guys, you see this card,
command.
Autumn Veil? You see this card, Autumn Veil?
Yeah.
This shit doesn't draw a card. That's the problem. That's the problem. It doesn't draw a card.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
What? Like, becomes like an auto staple in every single Magic format it's legal in, but okay.
So this one friend of mine plays a lot of Junt, like only Junt, and he's pretty good with it, has a lot of good results, and he's just ranting about Veil of Summer all day long, because it is so painful if you make a discard spell, and then the opponent just goes, Veil of Summer, I draw a card, like, oh boy.
It's the ultimate FU, because it's like, oh, I had this card, I guess I'll discard this card, but wait, it replaces itself. Like, essentially, like, you just discarded Veil of Summer, but they replaced it. Yeah. No,
I don't think this card has anything to do with green, and it's 1 mana, and I think it should just be gone.
1 card. Oh, okay, wait. What formats do you play outside? What decks do you play other than Mill and Modern?
I usually play every competitive format that is needed. So I have, it's not a real competitive format anymore, I guess, but at Legacy I do have a deck. I have 1 deck for every format.
Okay.
So Pioneer, I used to have Inverter, which was getting the X right. So right now I have this new UB shell thingy, but I'm not so deep in Pioneer anymore because there are no more events. I mean, with all what happened in the past half a year, all paper events got cancelled, no more local events to grind and get PTQs and so on. So yeah, but generally speaking, I'm open for every format that is competitive and.
What are you playing in Pauper?
Elves. I'm playing elves.
Wow, yes, a man of culture.
Yeah.
What type of elves? Are you playing Distant Melody elves? Are you playing... Oh, there's like 3 of them. There's 3 spells that every Pauper Elves player argues about. It's like Distant Melody or like 2 other green spells. Yeah.
So Distant Melody I've never touched because I never really saw the benefit of having this 1 island in this deck and then playing Distant Melody. Because also the thing is, when do you want to draw cards? When you are behind. And if you're behind with Distant Melody, let's say after a wipe or something, you draw no cards because you don't have any elves.
Creatures, yeah.
So 2 goal things are Lead the Stampede, the 3 mana one, which looks at the top 5, and Winding Wave, which just looks at the top 4. And this is just good and great enough. So that's what I play in Pauper. Then Modern, of course, I have the Mill deck, and in Legacy I play Storm. And yeah, Standard, I mean, rotates every now and then, so
Would you agree
No,
that
yeah,
Tendrils of Agony is the best card in Legacy? Is the single strongest card in Legacy?
No. I think
I've only heard that as a joke because someone said Tendrils of Agony is the single best card in Legacy. Every time you cast it, you win the game.
yeah. But a fun fact, I do have Tendrils of Agony signed by Cyrus.
Oh,
Common. You know that guy who's like wrecking all the Legacy events? Like
Oh
also he
my
won
God.
GP Atlanta last year. So I met him at GP Bologna last year. That was also Legacy.
yeah.
And he watched me lose a game against Show and Talent, and we had a small chat afterwards. And then he signed me that card. It was pretty nice.
I got I always wanted. I have a I used to be a dredge player, and I have a oh my God, that instant that gives a -1 dread blaster dark blast. I have that foil signed by the artist, but I really want Sodek to sign it. I really want Sodek to sign that card as well. So I understand the feeling.
Fun fact 2, Sodek was in the same top A that I was in at the PTQ in Brussels earlier this year.
What was he playing? Dredge?
Dredge, yeah.
Dredge?
So
Because I know recently
he won it.
Sodek's.
I think he won it.
I know Sodek's been jamming some adnos here and there. I remember that was like a bit of a discussion, and he's been jamming some adnos, and I was like, "What's going on?" Okay, all right. So I think you know what, we've talked for a while, and I think that's about it. I think I've gotten most of what I can out of you, besides some nitty gritty. If anyone watching this video has any more questions regarding Alex or anything he wants to play, Alex, where can they reach you?
So if you want to reach me, you can hit up Twitter and find me at @Alex_Hempe. And you can find me also in the Mill Discord under the very good name Mill13. And recently, like last week, I started streaming on Twitch, and you can find me there under the name Krabbe Go, which is the German word for crab. Because that's what we want to do.
I didn't know that. That's great. That's
we want to
great.
play crab and say go. That's the spirit.
All of that, by the way, link down below. It's going to be on screen, all that down below, especially to the Twitch down below. But I think that's about it. If you have any pressing questions that maybe I can address, comment them down below. If you have specific questions for Alex, please direct them right to him. I have no business answering them, but I'm happy to bring this to you. Are there any final things you want to say, Alex, before we sign off here?
For sure, I want to say it was a pleasure talking to you. For those who don't know, it was the first time that Chav and I got into a deep conversation.
One-on-one conversation, yeah.
Exactly. And thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to see more Mill content from you.
Look, if you win another Modern Challenge, you're back on. I hope you understand that. Like, this is going to be another late nighter. Like, it's not just winning the challenge. You have now to spend another 2-3 hours with me making another interview. So if you don't want that, don't win the Modern Challenge. Don't win it.
Okay, I see. I get it. Thanks, hi.
All right. Thank you, Alex. We'll sign off there. Thank you, everyone. And I guess I'll give you my corny intro that everyone's actually been bringing up, that now I've been straying far away from God and playing Madden Cacophony. This doesn't make sense anymore, what I'm saying. But regardless, remember that even the impossible is possible. And as we ponder that thought, I hope you'll join Alex and I and many of us as we take a glimpse into the unthinkable.